Okay, I'm going to call the public meeting of the Rockport Select Board to order Tuesday, October 30th at 5:30 PM. First order of new business is to consider the appointment of Deb Hall to be the Rockport representative to the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation. And we'll open the discussion.
I can make a motion if you want to for discussion purposes.
Perfect.
I will move to appoint Deborah Hall to be one of our Rockport representatives to the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation.
For a second?
I'll second that. You were looking at
You
me.
weren't, because he
now
wasn't
we'll
gonna
have
do that to
discussion.
me. I think he wasn't gonna do that to me.
Are you interested in doing it? I guess is the first question.
Well, put it this way, Owen has called me several times in the past week or so, and we discussed it, and we discussed the amount of time involved, and et cetera, and I do see the value of a select board person, current select board person being on the board, and, I can make it work time-wise. Yes. So anyway, yeah, I'm willing to do it. I've reviewed some documents, he sent some documents off, dropped some documents off for me to take a look at. And I went on the website and had reviewed, a number of things, bylaws and other matters. And obviously, there's a learning curve there with respect to, the substance of what they do. But I am willing to do it. Simply do it.
Any other questions or comments before we vote?
Just a comment that I'm glad that you're willing to do it. There's a lot of work. It wouldn't make any sense for me to do it with my short time. One of
Sure.
the problems I've had
Right.
is turnover.
Right.
I think we're lucky to have Owen on that board.
I agree.
He's very passionate about the subject, and I thought he gave a terrific presentation to our board, and so the fact that he's bringing you into the loop, I think, is gonna help you climb that learning curve a little bit more quickly.
Yes, I agree.
And, to the extent that I can, I'm happy to provide any historical perspective. I haven't been on the board at all, but I've been involved over the years with the issues, happy to help with that if I
Yeah,
can.
thanks, because I would appreciate tapping into your institutional memory on some of that. Thanks.
I too would like to thank you for stepping forward to fill the void. All in favor? And the vote is unanimous with Deborah abstaining, or.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
can
abstain,
abstain.
yeah.
Right. So, I think Deborah and I, you would like to have us discuss some of the material here about the Midcoast Solid Waste, this concept of Scrap Dog, which is a young couple here in the Midcoast area who would like to start a composting area or composting pickup area at the Midcoast Solid Waste Station. The concept here is that, in a nutshell, people could bring their wet scraps, table scraps, other compostable material to Midcoast Solid Waste, where instead of entering the recycling stream, it would be picked up by these folks and taken out to their facility, which I believe is in Washington, and then composted. Besides the benefits of composting, it reduces the amount of our waste stream, so theoretically it could help reduce some of our costs. There's a little bit of controversy with this because one of the owners of the organization does work at Midcoast Solid Waste Facility. I think people probably saw the article in the paper about this conflict of interest. I don't think it's insurmountable. But with that introductory piece, other people can chime in, or Deborah, you can ask questions that you think are appropriate.
Well,
Yeah.
a little history here.
Yeah,
I can
okay.
remember me sitting here meeting with this board with Tom Ford, who is no longer with us unfortunately, having a discussion, pulling up a pail of compost and setting it on this desk. So this issue has been around for a while.
Pulling the pieces out one at a time.
Yeah,
Nice.
And it's,
I promise I won't do that.
it's actually very effective because, you know, that is an issue. There's an awful lot of what we throw away is food waste or something like that. It's not very good for the incinerated. Eco-Maine folks, in fact, when we were having the discussion about having Eco-Maine, they said they'd be just as happy if we filtered that stuff out before we got it down to them, because of course they receive a per ton amount of money from us to dispose of the stuff, but they can't do it. It messes the thing up down there. So they're just as happy for us to pay them less money and give them cleaner stuff.
The way Lissa described it, which made a lot of sense, the lettuce doesn't burn well.
Yeah.
So, you know, that made a lot of sense.
And this organ, in fact, you might have seen me at our meeting last night, I had a big placard sticking out of my pocket. Well, it was from these folks, because they had a display in the bank, and I've been following them for a while, and they have a business where they will come to your home, give you the 5-gallon bucket, and then for some nominal amount of money, anywhere, I don't know, $8, $9, $10, $11 a month or something like that, come to your home and pick it up, and then after a year or so, then they bring you some compost. And I'm probably gonna do that, because I've composted in my backyard 20 years ago. I think Midco Solid Waste had a composting shop or seminar where they taught you how to do it and then offered you to buy the compost box for a reduced price, and I did that, and I've got it out in the backyard, but it's
Probably ready by now.
it's a pain in the neck, and I've gotten some stuff out of it, and the animals have figured out how to get the lid off it and all that kind of stuff, so. So the concept I support, and I think having it at the Midco Solid Waste makes all the sense in the world. People are going there to take their trash there. If we can train them to divert one more thing out of their trash and put it in the bucket, you know, then I think it's great. As to the conflict of interest situation, which I read about in the news, I don't know if anybody else did or not, as Doug said, I think that can be dealt with. This is a one-year pilot project.
Exactly.
It seems to me that we could, written into the contract could be something about, well, if the particular employee is doing some work for his business while at the station, that they could make some arrangement to say, well, okay, if you work, you know, 8 hours and 6 of it's gonna be for this, and something can be done, and particularly where it's a short-term thing. I was talking to Rick about this earlier, and either one of two things is gonna happen. Either this is gonna take off and go crazy, and this guy's gonna be so busy, he's gonna have to resign his position at Midco Solid Waste because he'll be too busy with his own business, or it'll go the other way and it work. I'm
Right.
hoping that it works. And so
That's
it
a
seems
good
to me
point,
that
yeah.
it's in the community interest to help with the waste stream, and it does fit with, as is shown here, the mission statement of Midco Solid Waste. It fits right in with that, so I don't have an issue with it. I guess, you know, if there was another business that wanted to do it too, then we might have to have a discussion about that, because we wouldn't want to favor one business over another, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been another business that's stepped forward to do this yet. So I
So-
think that I would suggest to our representatives that we look at this favorably and figure out a way to address the conflict. The conflict is there, there's no question about that, but let's find a way to address it and make it work.
And I just want to say one thing real quick. Owen had said that Jim Guerrero wanted to point out the fact, as we talked about this, as we considered this, or, you know, that, you know, any discussions about how I was perhaps coming on board, that this is truly just a one-year stint, just exactly what you said, just a one-year trial period to see if it's something that the communities will embrace or not. And so it is a short-term sort of thing with the kind of consequences that you just mentioned. Either, you know, it's gonna be wildly successful, or it probably will just not take off. So it seemed like Camden and Owen, at least, you know, were very, personally, were very supportive of it. I think Lincolnville and Hope had expressed concerns about the conflict.
And those are legitimate concerns to raise, but it seems to me it can be worked out.
So, I only had two things, if I might. One was, you know, I'd like to see it more coincide with the budget year instead of stopping November 1st. You know, I mean, I realize that's a year, but having it go through June 30th of 2020 is 18 months, 19 months.
The Midco Solid Waste Board has been working on it for quite a few months.
Okay.
It's just taken them a while. And one thing to keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure Owen will text me if I'm wrong, but I believe the young man is only there part-time, he's not there full-time.
That's what I understood.
So it's.
Yes, that
there's some-
sounds familiar.
And, okay, go ahead, you had
I
one.
was gonna say, my other one has this been reviewed by our attorney or an attorney that represents the Midcoast Solid Waste?
I can't answer that.
Because I wouldn't want to.
Right. Midcoast Solid Waste has their own attorney. It's Paul Gibbons.
I mean, if we knew that that had happened, I wouldn't have a problem going forward with it tonight, but
You-
if
you-
it hasn't,
To
You
be-
can always
to-
make it subject to
Well, it's,
their
we
review.
don't approve this
Yeah,
contract, it'd be
right.
Midco Solid Waste
Right.
Board that would approve it.
Just trying to
our
advise
vo-
Deborah.
Our voice with Deborah and
Right.
Right.
Owen could say,
Right, to keep in mind that the Midco Solid Waste Board is its own freestanding board that has the power and authority to make a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
And the towns, 4 towns have given them that power. And typically, with something like this, what would happen is the representative would be here and in the liaison reports would give a report saying, this is the discussion we've been having, and then you'd get a chance to weigh in as it was going along, that you thought it was a good idea or a bad idea, and she could have a sense. But where she's coming in cold, it's a chance for you to give a sense of, is it a good idea or is it
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I just had the question of,
Right.
has it been,
Given the history, I can't imagine that
And the-
Midco Solid Waste would enter into anything without running it by
Right.
their attorney.
Well,
And this looks very
I can try,
attorney-like.
Jim.
I mean, it looks pretty cut and dried.
I
to
will
me.
check into it.
It doesn't require any vote by this board, other than you just getting a sense
Yeah.
of what they're doing, and you can raise that question. I have Jim's text.
I believe our intent tonight was just to provide input so that Deborah could take it back.
Yep.
Right. Which I appreciate because, as you said, Rick, I mean, on an ongoing basis, when we do committee reports and all, I would report on this and you guys would know about it verbally, but I'm being presented with this cold at the same time I'm being appointed, so I haven't had that opportunity.
Are there any other thoughts on this matter or other Midco Solid Waste? Okay.
Yeah, I think that board's got a lot of work to do over the next couple of years.
Alrighty, I believe that's it for that meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion, we adjourn this portion of our evening.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock then. Did you gentlemen?